Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Just Add More Heart, Self-Care Techniques for the Caregiver. My name is Lucy Gerland and I am a caregiver specialist with the Fairfax Area Agency on Aging. This morning I sent out to all everybody who is registered slides from the speaker, the information that she will be covering. You won't need to access these slides during the webinar. You'll see them on your screen, but they're there for your future reference. Everybody on the webinar is in listen only mode, but you can and please do ask any questions by typing your question in the question box on your dashboard. Today's presentation is being recorded and the recording will be sent to all registrants by early next week. As you exit the webinar, there will be a brief survey, and please help us out by giving us your thoughts and responding to the survey. And you're all invited to join us for our future webinars we have coming up in June, Diagnosis Dementia, Now What? And in August, Resources for Caregivers. And we also have webinars in September, October, and November of 2019. When you sign up for one, you'll see all the remaining ones that we have. And now it's a pleasure to introduce today's speaker. We're very excited because today is all about you, the caregiver, and taking care of yourself, taking some time for yourself. Our speaker is Steph Herbert. She's the director of Innova Well, as part of Innova Health Systems, and she's a Heart Math certified trainer. Steph has been able to see firsthand results as a Heart Math certified trainer in her work with clinicians, caregivers, and the general workforce. She spends much of her time coaching others to seek their authentic personal wellness and power, overcoming their limiting beliefs, and rewiring their heart to mind and energy connection and conversation for more energetic resilience. She has seen how these practices help to make more positive decisions for overall personal health and well-being, which ultimately creates more positive outcomes for a caregiver and the people they're caring for. So, Steph, thank you so much for being with us today, and please go right ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that has joined today. I'm very grateful to be here and really share my message with you and these techniques and my story. So I know, thank you, Lucy, for the introduction. I know that that my introduction does focus on what I do on a day-to-day basis, which is really working with clinicians and employees throughout the Innova Health System. But on the side, one of my passion areas is really working with caregivers. And the reason why I really gravitate towards a caregiver is number one, I am one as well. I am in the mix of taking care of my 96-year-old grandmother who, knock on wood, is doing very well right now, but we have had several years of some decline in her health, and obviously that's where I have been able to kind of step in and help with her transition of care. And it really was during that time, along with the career that I was in 2 years ago, which was primary care practice, where I started to find that I was actually burning out. And when I say burning out, my own symptoms obviously were just really not being able to get a handle on how stress and anxiety was making me feel in that moment. And with that, obviously, some people can kind of go into shutdown mode and everything feels a little bit heavier than it should on you, and you can't really strategize or figure out, what resources or really what to do next to make yourself feel better. So it really was at that time, about 2 years ago, when I took a step back and really decided to look at what did I need to do that could be sustainable and easy, let's be honest, easy modalities for wellness are easy to use, and people gravitate towards that. But it was really that moment that I knew I needed to make a change, because I was not managing myself the best way that I could, and it really wasn't serving my highest purpose. So I did a lot of soul searching, and I landed on meditation. And when I first started meditation a couple years ago, I started using an app and started to really figure out my breathing, and it really, really was hard. I would sit there, my brain would go off into a different direction, whether I was worried about my nan or my family or myself, or I just really couldn't sit still. And that's when I was lucky enough to be introduced to HeartMath. And one of the things that I really want to preface before we really go into the techniques is the great thing about HeartMath techniques is, while it can be meditative, they really are tools that help you, tools that you can use in the moment to self-regulate stress and anxiety, versus having to sit in a space, close your eyes, listen to a meditation, and really shut down. What has actually transpired out of really using HeartMath on a daily basis and building my own personal resilience is now I am able to meditate easily, when I choose to do so. So I wanted to give that brief synopsis of my personal story and how I got here, and also just share with you, I feel very passionate in sharing these tools with you because I know they work. Again, working with caregivers on the side, I know that these tools are able to be used in the moment and actually shared with the people that you're taking care of, so that you can do it together. So without further ado, we'll get started. And let me make sure that the screen is working. Okay, here we go. So I did want to say a little bit about HeartMath. The HeartMath Institute, based out of California, has been in existence for over 20 years. So they are a very well thought of institution, and the HeartMath system is actually used by hospitals and health professionals, businesses, police, fire, corrections institutes, schools, universities, athletes, military, and special forces. There's a lot of published research that you can go check out after we get off the call together, that discusses the benefits of using HeartMath on a daily basis and just incorporating it into your life. And our objectives today together is to really help you learn to strengthen your personal resilience through research-based tools that do help you increase your personal resilience and your energy levels, and leverage your ability to think clearly under pressure and discern appropriate solutions to problems. And that kind of goes back to what I was sharing with my story, is that when I was so just in the face of stress and anxiety, I really remember just being in that moment and not having clear thoughts and not really knowing what to do next or how to get out of that overwhelming bubble of I'm going into shutdown mode. These tools help you increase your ability to maintain situational awareness, diminish symptoms of personal and professional stress, such as confusion, fatigue, and sleep, and they improve your reaction times and coordination. So what is resilience? The resilience is the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. And what I really like about this visual is, it's showing us the batteries. And a great analogy is with your cell phone. Now we typically are pretty diligent about making sure that we are charging our cell phone because we need it, and people need to be able to get in touch with us. But what if we took a step back and really looked at that practice and thought to brought to ourselves, why aren't we taking the time to recharge our own batteries? So I think that that's a great way for you to remember what resilience actually means. Is it really is, again, the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress. So we need to be diligent about recharging our own batteries for the things that are stressing us or challenging us in our lives. One really important thing, and if you hear me talk on the outside or with any of my clients or with providers, I really like to go into the fact that we are all energy systems and that we expend and renew energy. And we do that with food and nourishment. We do that with hydration. We do that with sleep. So it's a very basic thought, but it's a thing that we all seem to forget, especially as caregivers, because we are in that moment of always having to take care of somebody else, that we lose sight of how important it is to really take care of ourselves. And, on that note, one of the things that I used to think about a lot is I always knew that I needed to take care of myself if I wanted to give the best care to other people. But it was never something that I did. So what I would also ask you to be thinking about while we go through this is, what are the blockages that are coming up in your life that are not allowing you to take care of yourself? Even if it's for 5 minutes, and we will go into that a little bit later when we go through some of the techniques, but even just giving yourself 5 minutes to renew, whether it's, working on your breathing or just closing your eyes or staring at a tree or staring at something and just allowing yourself to kind of check out. Those are the little steps that you can take to renew your energy system, as well as eating properly and hydrating and sleeping. So I think it's important to really put a name to all of these domains of resilience. And each of us are stronger in some of these different domains. Some of us might stay in the physical domain of resilience. Some of us might stay more in the emotional side or the mental or the spiritual. But it is important to understand that the ultimate goal is to make sure that all of these domains of resilience are acting as one, and we're staying in a pretty good bubble with the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, so that we are more coherent. And we'll get to what coherent actually means a little bit later on in the slides. But wanted to give you the opportunity to, and I know Lucy sent these slides, but understanding what those domains of resilience looks like. So from a physical perspective, it's the physical flexibility, your endurance, your strength. From the mental domain of resilience, it's your mental flexibility, your attention span, your ability to focus, and your ability to incorporate multiple points of view. And from the emotional side, it's the emotional flexibility, the positive outlook of life, and how you self-regulate. And so in going back to my story, and you can put this in your own stories as well, what I shared with you is that my self-regulation wasn't bad, which basically meant that I was staying in that emotional domain, and that's where I was, focusing and not able to get out of. So I wasn't coherent in all aspects of my life because that's basically where I was staying. From a spiritual side is that spiritual flexibility, the commitment to your own personal values, and really the tolerance of others' beliefs and values. I really like showing this slide because this gives you a really good visual of what your heart rate is doing when something is stressing you out. So what this slide shows is that, at the 15-minute marker, the wife said something that got under her husband's skin. And as you can see, the heart rate starts to elevate. Now, what we don't know, and this is what's kind of scientifically given to us from heart math by use of specific devices that actually regulate and capture people's heart rate, is that your heart rate actually remains elevated after some sort of significant event. You know, I didn't know this, and maybe it's sophomoric for not knowing that, but, you know, I would think that if I was in that heated moment, either in my particular case, you know, I either was stewing on it or mad about it, or I would get over it, but I never really thought to consider that my heart in that moment, my actual heart rate and beats, would have still been elevated after any of those things that were stressing me out. So as you can see in these slides, you know, the heart rate actually remains elevated up to about 60 minutes after something that has caused stress in your life. So hopefully that will really resonate home as we start to go through some of the techniques, because the heart math techniques really are here and created for us so that we can have a better conversation with our heart and our brain, so that we are more self-regulated and we can control our heart rate, so that we're not in those domains of, you know, or really of depleting our battery as fast as we should be doing. So I know I've been talking a lot. I just wanted to check in. Are there any questions so far?
None so far, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Then I will keep going. Okay, so when we talk about the energy balance, obviously there's a constant energy expenditure without the balance of adequate rest and recovery lead to burnout, errors, health challenges, and diminished performance. So what we're going to go through is actually some of those emotions that would keep us in that depleted energetic balance. What I found in learning more about these techniques is that it was a great tool and time for me to actually name some of my depleting emotions and some of my positive emotions. So depleting emotions, they are emotions such as fear, frustration, impatience, and anger, and they do have a toxic feeling in your body, and it's scientifically proven that they do cause the release of stress hormones in your body. When that happens, that results in reduced muscle mass, brain cell death, impaired memory, accelerated aging, impaired mental function, and diminished performance. And some renewing emotions are emotions and attitudes such as care and courage, tolerance, and appreciation. And they actually, again, scientifically proven, create neurochemicals that regenerate your system and offset that energy drain, resulting in increased longevity, increased resilience to adversity, improved memory, improved problem solving, increased intuition and creativity, and improved job performance and achievement. And I really want, just for a moment, if you really think about that, again, going back to the depleting emotions, such as fear or frustration or anger, a good example is if you are ever having, you know, a little disagreement with a loved one around caregiving for another family member, in those moments of having those conversations of frustration, you know, we do forget, or at least I do. I forget what I wanted to say. And it's not until after I'm like, oh, I wish I said this about my grandmother's care. Or so again, it's really understanding that the more that we stay in those depleting emotions, the more impairment we get in all aspects of our body. So resilience, optimal performance, fulfillment, and health are grounded in the intelligent management of energy expenditures and the ability to renew our energy. One of the most important steps in being able to stop these energy drains and increase your personal resilience is to identify the unnecessary energy expenditures. So be thinking about the unnecessary emotions that you stay stuck in. Why do you stay stuck in that? Is it a defense mechanism? Is it something that you've just learned throughout your life to kind of stay in that area? Self-awareness is key in really self-regulation and understanding that in order to really, really take care of yourself, you need to be in a more coherent state. And heart rhythms directly affect your physical and mental performance. So when I showed that slide earlier of the husband and wife being in a heated conversation, this is a good image right here that shows you actually what the heartbeat looks like. So the heart signals affect the brain centers that are involved in your decision making, your reaction time, your social awareness, and the ability to self-regulate. So on the left, you'll see what an incoherent wave actually looks like, and it's choppy and it's all over the place, versus a coherent beat that actually facilitates proper brain and heart function. And one of the great things about HeartMath, and I obviously am not with you guys in the flesh, but they do have tools. This is also not a plug because I don't work for HeartMath directly, but they do have tools that you can purchase that actually hook up to your phones, where you can actually see what your coherence looks like in conjunction with the breathing tools. So it is a great piece of technology that kind of helps you practice these tools, helps you understand what you actually feel like when you're coherent, and have more energy, and how to breathe properly. So what we are going to do first is focus on the first step of one of the HeartMath tools, which is called heart-focused breathing. And this really is my favorite breathing technique. This is a breathing technique that will help you self-regulate in the moment. So let's say you're feeling very frustrated because, the person that you're taking care of is not listening to you, or not, it's just not a good day. You're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling frustrated. This is the actual technique that you can use to self-regulate, so that you get yourself out of that state of fight or flight. And the best part about all of these techniques is that you can do them with your eyes closed, and actually I will suggest that we do this together with our eyes closed first. But once you get the hang of it, you can do it with your eyes open and nobody knows you're doing it. So you're doing your own self-regulation technique in the moment, whenever you feel you need to really reconnect with your heart and calm down. And again, nobody has to know, but nobody will know. Heart-focused breathing is a powerful and effective tool for self-regulation. It really is the first step in shifting to a more coherent state. It helps you be more alert and calm at the same time, and it can help maintain your composure in challenging situations. So what I'd like you to do is just take a moment to shift around in your seat and get comfortable. You can go ahead, make sure that your feet are grounded on the floor. Don't cross your legs. Just really get comfortable. Let your hands drop on your knees. If you're laying down and listening to this, that's awesome. Just let your body lie and go ahead and close your eyes. And then I'll ask you to place both of your hands on your heart. What I'd like you to do is just focus your attention in the area of your heart, and just imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or your chest area. And you're just breathing a little slower and deeper than you usually do. So you can inhale 5 seconds in, and then exhale 5 seconds out. And again, just imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or your center chest area. And I will say that for some people that are new to this, it's a little bit hard to figure out how to connect with your heart space. So for me, I'm a very visual person, and what I actually do when I close my eyes is I trace where my heart is and just imagine what it looks like based on pictures that I've seen of what a heart looks like. And I'll just focus on that with my hands there and just imagine that the breath is going directly in and out of my heart. And breathe in. And exhale. Breathe in. And exhale. Just focusing all of those thoughts on the air, the oxygen, the energy going in and out of your heart. Okay, great job, guys. So I know this is a little bit harder because I can't see you or talk to you, but I'm hoping that the takeaway from that is that you're feeling a little bit more calm and more connected. I know specifically for me, the way that I feel when I really do this heart-focused breathing, which is a lot throughout the day, it just seems to allow my body to, my shoulders drop, my breathing slower, and I just have a lot more clarity in that moment. So before we move on, just want to check in. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm waking myself up now to check questions. That was very calming. Even all by myself here, I feel everything just, the energy is just so much softer now.
Good.
And there are, one question. I have high blood pressure. Will the heart-focused breathing help decrease my blood pressure?
Yes. So it can definitely be used for high blood pressure. I know for myself specifically, when I go get my blood pressure checked, this is exactly what I do. And I'm not doing it so that I can fake out the person taking my blood pressure, but it really is, again, a tool that I use to just regulate my heart. So yes, 100%. Now, it is not the only thing that is going to, regulate blood pressure. I mean, I obviously, for anybody who has diagnosed blood pressure, please make sure that you're checking it and checking in with your clinician. But this is definitely a great tool that when you feel like you're in that fluttering high blood pressure state, I would definitely recommend that you could use this.
Okay, and we have another question. How many times a day should I do this?
So the heart math technique suggests, in order to build better coherence, it's a great opportunity to do this a couple of times a day, maybe 2 to 3 times a day, and you can do it anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes each session. For me specifically, and again, each person is obviously different with regard to their time. When I first started incorporating this into my practice, I really made a constant effort to do this right as I got up and, was more alert in the day, and before I went to bed. And I would try and do it for at least 5 minutes. But again, it's anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes a day. And the studies with the technology that HeartMath has shown that you actually are able to change your heart and brain conversation based on what your heart waves look like if you do this for at least 30 days.
Thank you. Okay, those were our questions.
Great. Great questions. Thank you. All right. My computer must be asleep from that breathing. I'm just trying to change the slides. Bear with me. Okay. All right. So next, we're just going to go into the physiology of coherence and optimal functioning. So back to what I was just saying with regard to coherence. Coherence is the optimal state in which the heart, your mind, and your emotions are aligned and in sync. So physiologically, the immune, the hormonal, and the nervous systems function in a state of energetic coordination. What I really like about this visual, hopefully you can see this, but it's a picture of a crew or a rowing crew, and you can see in the picture all of the oars are coherent. And so I think that that's a great reminder. If you're on a row team, and I've never been on a row team, but each one has to work together to be coherent in order to make the boat move. So it's a great way to really think about your internal body is if one of the rowers, whether it be the immune system, the hormonal system, the nervous system, is not rowing at the speed and the rate of the other rowers, then the boat's going to go all over the place. And the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which is part of our nervous system, they go back to the hormonal and the internal aspects of our body, where if they're all over the place and not communicating properly with each other, that's when your body really starts to shut down. The sympathetic is responsible. It actually is, if you have heard of fight or flight, which most of us has, the sympathetic is really the area that controls all of those fight or flight reactions. And the parasympathetic is more of the brake pedal. So it slows down the heartbeat. It can constrict your bronchioles. It's more of the constrictor. And what I would say is that before I incorporated heart math into my life, I never really thought about the heart-brain connection or the communication. I really was living in that state of just thinking that my brain is doing all of the acting. And while I knew that it was important to regulate my breathing, I just never really, I never put those two things together. It's one of those basic things that when you take a step back, you actually realize that, all of these amazing things inside of our bodies are talking to each other at all times, but the times have changed so drastically and everything is moving so fast, especially when we're taking care of others and when we're working and we're trying to pay our bills and we're sitting in traffic, that we seem to forget the basic things that help us survive and really help us survive at our best. So once I really put that into perspective about understanding that my heart really had its own heart brain that was having a conversation, and again, scientifically backed, that the heart does have its own complex nervous system. Once I learned that, it was eye-opening to me. It was eye-opening that if I really focused on the heart connection and the breathing through my heart, that I was able to self-regulate and control all of those conversations that were going in my body. One of the most interesting facts that I learned in learning heart math is that the heart actually sends far more information to your brain than the brain sends to the heart. Had I not been told that and researched a little bit more about that, I guess I was living in that brain world thinking that my brain was doing all of the sending. But, I actually talked to a heart surgeon a couple of weeks ago, and I was asking him why he felt called to the heart. And he said it's because it's one of those things that when you actually take the heart out of the human body to give to another person, it still keeps going. And we know with the brain that that's not necessarily the thing that happens once the brain is shut off. So I think that for me, again, was another really strong reminder of how it's so important and vital that we as humans really do strive to connect to our heart and the breathing from the heart in order to live a more coherent life and take care of ourselves. The signals from your heart especially affect the brain centers involved in strategic thinking, reaction times, and self-regulation. And again, this is just a very good visual of emotions and your heart rhythm. So an incoherent heart rate obviously looks fluttered and inconsistent, and dips low and goes high. And a more coherent heart rate it's kind of like a nice wavy heart. The ultimate goal of the coherence is so that we have a very even keeled heart rate that is managing our internal systems. Heart signals affect the brain centers. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that one in there. Coherence practice outcomes. So going back to how often this should be practiced, how it should be utilized. I mean, the ultimate goal for bringing this into your life as a caregiver is that this enhances your ability to maintain composure during challenges. It improves your family and social harmony. A great thing for that is I was talking to a client a couple weeks ago and actually made a suggestion from a caregiver perspective. Again, we all know that situation where we don't agree with the other person in the family member or in your family while you're taking care of that family member, and maybe they're judgmental on what you're doing, or there are just so many different conversations that happen on the outside. And when you're the person who's taking care of the person that needs the care, and you're doing everything that you possibly can, and somebody comes towards you with some of that information, you can easily get frustrated. And so one of the recommendations that I made, and I know this was out of this person's comfort zone, but I said, again, going back to the understanding of how basic we truly are internally and at the center of all of our needs, the suggestion I made is when you really get into those heated times with family members or whoever, take a moment and introduce heart-focused breathing and say, you know what, we're clearly not communicating right now. We're not in a good space. So why don't we just take a few moments, step away from each other. Let me teach you this tool that I just had. And hopefully we can create a more coherent, heart-focused state where we can come to a decision together, or maybe just have a better conversation. And so she did do it. And a couple weeks later, she actually texted me and she said, I never would have thought that I would have had that conversation with this particular person of, hey, let's do some heart-focused breathing so we could learn to speak better to each other. But they did, and they were able to come up with a great solution for the person that they were caring for. So I wanted to share that story as well, in case that inspires any of you to bring this to your family, and really in hopes of creating more social harmony. These practices reduce your fatigue, your exhaustion. They help promote the body's natural regenerative processes. They improve coordination and reaction times, and they help enhance your ability to think clearly and find better solutions. And they increase the access to your intuitive intelligence. So the emotions and the feelings that create coherence are courage and honor, dignity, confidence, appreciation and gratitude, kindness, care, love, compassion, tolerance, patience, enthusiasm, and joy. And the reason why, I like to name those and bring those is because the next step that we'll be doing is the quick coherence technique. The next technique the next and final technique that we'll go through actually is the one that you can work on, on a daily basis to actually create more coherence for all of the systems in your body to be talking better together. The heart focused breathing technique that we worked on first, that again is a great tool for you to use in the moment to self-regulate. Going back to my story of what I just shared with you about the person sharing it with another person, it's in those moments where you feel anxious, you feel tense, you feel overwhelmed, you know your body's going into a state of panic. That's when you use heart focus. That is when you use heart focused breathing. This next one that we're going to go through is really the technique that you would use to build more resilience so that you are creating a steadier heart and brain conversation. And as you'll see when we proceed, you will be bringing up emotions and feelings, or you will be asked to. So the reason why I like to actually bring those up before we go into it is so that you have some ideas on what to bring up in your intention. Okay, so the great thing about all of these steps is that each one builds on the other. So what I'd ask you again is just to get into a nice settled state. Make sure that your legs are uncrossed just in this particular moment until you really learn how to use these techniques. Allow your arms to just relax. Think about your shoulders and just let them loosen, your neck loosen, your abdomen loosen, your ears, just let everything go. And go ahead and close your eyes. And place your hands on your heart. And once again, we're just going to focus our attention in the area of our heart. And imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or your chest area. And you're breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. And a good rule of thumb is inhaling for 5 seconds. And exhale for 5 seconds. And just imagining that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. And now what I'd like you to do is just make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling such as appreciation or care for someone or something in your life as you continue to think about the breath going in and out of your heart. It could be your pet. I know for me, it's always my nephew because he makes me smile and so happy every time he runs to me and hugs me. Just think about something like that. And just attempt to experience that memory while you focus on breathing. And breathing in and out. Experiencing that regenerative feeling. All going in and out to your heart space. Okay. Great job, guys. So before we wrap up, any questions, comments, feelings after that quick coherence technique?
I'm going to give it a second. Looks like somebody's typing here. Okay. Does this practice have an app we can download to guide us through the process?
So there is an app that actually comes with the technology, and it's called the M-Wave Pro is the app. But what I would suggest is going to the HeartMath website, and there are everything is actually written on there with some videos as well. If anybody is on Instagram, I actually have an Instagram handle called Meraki Healing, which is M as in Mary, IRAKI Healing. And I actually have some videos up where we go through this again.
Okay. I did get a comment. I can see how this could really improve a relationship by focusing on what you appreciate about another person.
Correct. And there is actually another tool to build onto this, but you can, because thank you for making that comment. It is very true. You can actually use these tools while you are listening to the other person and just do your heart focused breathing, and the studies and the research show that you actually hear more and hear better when you're in that heart coherent state.
I happen to be reading a book in another language, and it was the author actually said that she was HeartMath certified. So I know this is international, isn't it?
It is, yes. Actually, when I went to my training in California, there were people all over the world, from all over the world, that are taking this back to, they're taking it back to schools, hospitals. There was a Colombian coffee farmer that was taking it back to the fields. It really is, again, in my perspective, it's one of those basic human needs that we have forgotten to connect to. And it's why it's very important for those of us that are ready and wanting to have this conversation of how to take care of ourselves. This is the best way to start.
Okay, I have a few more questions. So now they're starting to roll in. And please remember, attendees, you do have a questions panel there. Just type in your question. Please repeat when to do the heart-focused breathing and when to do the quick coherence technique. Thank you.
Sure. So the heart-focused breathing is the tool that you'll want to use for immediate self-regulation. So let's say when you're in that moment where you're having a disagreement with somebody, when you are sitting in traffic and you're feeling, overwhelmed or angry, or it's a great self-regulation tool to use in the moment when you're feeling like your personal battery is being drained, and you're in fight or flight, or if you're about to snap. The quick coherence technique is the technique that HeartMath has really spent a lot of time on saying that if people worked on quick coherence techniques and brought that into their lives a couple times a day for 2 to 5 minutes, you are creating more personal coherence, which means you are creating a better heart-brain conversation and heart rate pattern. So remember when we were looking, or if you were looking, or when I was describing what an incoherent heart rate looks like, which is it looks like an EKG picture. It's all over the place, up and down and up and down. A coherent heart, it has a nice ebb and flow to it where it doesn't have those jagged lines. And so the quick coherence technique is used to have more of a create better personal resilience and create more coherence. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. It's very graphic because when you look at the jagged lines, it makes you feel like and then when you look at the smoother part,
Yeah. Yep.
you know, it just takes you there. It's like
Yep.
an ocean wave. I have another question. Can you explain more about how this helps with memory? I find my spouse is forgetting a lot, and you made me consider that it may be from being overwhelmed from caregiving multiple people.
Yep. So, I mean, I think going back to what I had said earlier, when you're in that fight or flight state, when your hormones, when when everything internally is just being pushed to the max, that's when we find that people do have memory loss. And so by actually adding these types of techniques, and again focus on really intentionally breathing from your heart so that everything better regulates, because again the heart sends more information to your brain than the brain sends to the heart. That's where it can increase your mental resilience and acuity. Going back to my story, again, I was finding that as I was burning out and really in that fight, I mean, I was just in that fight or flight constantly and couldn't get out of it. I couldn't remember if I had done something or what I'd have a conversation and I'd leave and be like, what in the, did I just say, I can't remember what I was supposed to do. And so at least from my perspective and the people that I worked with, by really intentionally bringing these practices on, I know that my memory has increased because I'm not stressed. I'm able to self-regulate.
Okay. All right. So that is all. Oh, I just got another one. In the face of the depleting emotions, is it best
Mm-hmm.
to try to avoid them, ignore them, or work through them?
So that's a fabulous question. What I would say with depleting emotions, it's just really important to understand how much time you are spending there. So to answer your question, I would say it's important to work through them. You don't want to ignore them, but going back to what that battery looks like, it's important to really define how much time you spend in depleting emotions versus positive emotions. Because if you can get yourself to spend more time in the positive, more grateful emotional state, things just mesh a lot better.
Great. Well, we are coming up to our end, and this was such great information. I'm glad we have it recorded, and I welcome anybody to re-listen to this as many times as you want. Also, as we sign out, you will receive a survey, and please, if you could respond to that, it helps us keep the offerings for our webinars relevant to your needs. And Steph, I want to say thank you so much. This is such a unique topic, and as a caregiver and working with caregivers, I know and you know that we don't often take a lot of time for ourselves.
Yeah, we
And
don't.
so,
Yep.
right? So it was great to
Yep.
have some time to just really focus on yourself because as a caregiver, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of anybody else.
Yeah. And I'm again so very grateful that I had the opportunity to share my mission and passion with you guys. And just like you said, Lucy, I can't stress this enough. If there's anything that you take away from this, it's just to really allow yourself that time, which is, I mean, you breathe every single day. That's what keeps you alive. So if you can do anything to just connect more with yourself, to take care of yourself, this would be a great tool to incorporate because you're already doing it anyways.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, and thank you everybody who attended, and I'll look forward to seeing you at future webinars.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.